For the rim. Got it! Oh, the slam. Oh, using Curry way downtown. Oh, what a shot from Curry!
What's up, NBA fans? Dom2K on the mic, and my goal in this video is to give you as comprehensive of a timeline as I can of all the crimes Steph Curry has committed against the Houston Rockets since around the year 2015. I realized there were some years before that, however, 15 is where the whole Steph versus Harden thing started and they were both top players, and then, well, one of them was contending. I also just feel like that's when the most egregious crime started. Not just the playoffs either. In this undertaking, I went through the regular season as well, because after what just happened about a week ago, I just realized, man, out of everyone that Steph terrorizes, the Houston Rockets hold a special place in his heart. So strap in and enjoy. Unless you're a Houston Rockets fan, then just strap in and hang on for your life. Kicking off Houston and Golden State's quote-unquote playoff rivalry in 2015, the tone was set rather early on, with Steph being a part of the defensive stop on Harden that granted them a 2-0 series lead. Through those home games, he'd averaged 34 points on 60% from the field with 6 assists, whilst nailing 11 of his 22 three-point attempts. The Rockets were headed home now though, where they were supposed to get an adequate chance to respond. Instead, Curry absolutely torched them with 40 more points and 7 out of his 9 threes to comfortably situate the Warriors at 3-0. To add insult, he'd made his 59th three-point shot of the 2015 playoffs, which broke Reggie Miller's record of threes made during a single postseason. Heavy foreshadowing with that one. There had been rumblings that Harden possibly deserved his MVP for the year, then I just don't think the discussion ever popped back up afterwards. 2016 wouldn't be much different, as Steph would add them to his unanimous MVP highlight tape on a random game in February. 19 points in the first quarter with a hilarious assortment of shots leading to a 35.9 assist outing. I believe one of them was also a top pass in his career, as he whipped it behind his back on the move to kick off a fast break. He was just out there trying anything. Unfortunately, this time in the playoffs, he wouldn't get a crack at the Rockets as he suffered multiple injuries. However, for the one full game he got to play, it was fairly clear where things were headed. How about these two matchups in 2017 that were only a few days apart? Towards the end of March, he put in 2 ridiculous daggers after getting Clint Capella switched onto him, which predictably didn't end well, capping off what was a 32-point, 10 rebound and 7 assist effort. Just a few days later, he put the script on repeat, knocking down multiple clutch baskets to keep the Rockets just out of reach. 2018 mattered a bit more as they were able to meet for their 3rd playoff duel in 4 years. The first 2 hadn't particularly been close, yet Houston was now revolutionized with the addition of Chris Paul, set to give Golden State their biggest challenge of the KD era. Down 3-2 and trailing much of Game 6 with a serious chance of being eliminated, Curry responded with 29 points, 6 assists, 5 rebounds, and an assortment of dazzling plays in the 4th quarter to prevent Houston from gaining momentum. The effort would go on to send the series to the infamous Game 7. They once again trailed big here throughout, but while the Rockets were busy missing 27 straight threes, Curry was hitting them at crucial points in the game, which officially swung the momentum in the Warriors' favor. When it was all said and done, the tally was 27, 10, and 9 to go with 7 three-pointers. It's a shame he couldn't share any of those with Houston. They only needed a few. These efforts helped to just barely get his squad over the hump and to the NBA Finals, which was disappointing to some given it very much felt as if they were about to lose before CP3 went down with the hamstring. Down double digits in 2 elimination games? Houston had been the better regular season team with him in the lineup. Were the Kevin Durant Warriors actually beatable after all if they didn't always get lucky? 2019 rolled around and they would have their chance to test that theory. They weren't quite as good as the previous year, yet the main cast had returned for both sides and Chris Paul was there, so a rematch is a rematch. Houston very much hung around in Game 1 also, as Steph was having a subpar night in the backseat of Kevin Durant's performance. This did not stop the ball from finding his hands in the clutch, where he was easily given a switch with Nene, up 2 points with around 30 seconds remaining. You can guess what happens next. Cross, and good night. Whatever chance Houston had to start the series on the right foot had dissolved at the hands of the usual. The theme continuing, in Game 5 when Kevin Durant went down with a calf injury, it caused Steph's number to be called and step up in the 4th quarter, where he had to remind everyone he could always put on the Batman suit if need be. Scoring 12 of his 23 points in this period when they needed it most, Curry would once again go on to put a Rockets big man in a switch, dropping in the three-pointer that more or less gave them the separation needed to escape with the W. Losing that match would have sent it back to Houston down 3-2 with no Durant for the bailout. This set up what could very well be the worst thing he's ever done to the franchise on what's becoming a long list. As we'd learned, KD was now out for the series, and the roster was employing a very questionable cast of characters outside of the core. There would simply be no better chance for the Rockets to conquer their demons at long last. The agendas were thriving, by the way. Through 2 quarters, it was tied with a very likely chance of going back to the Bay for Game 7, given that Steph Curry was scoreless. Incredible ammo for the camp that believed he could only succeed with either a super team or with the odds heavily stacked in his favor. Of course, I think most of us experienced in real time what happened next. Absolute mastery of heartbreak and the continued ownership of an entire city, pouring in 33 points and a collection of the most disrespectful daggers I've ever witnessed live. You could almost hear him saying, "You thought you had a chance, back into the ocean you go." Golden State was now 4-0 versus the Rockets in playoff series, and although we didn't know it at the time, Harden's days contending in Houston were essentially over. It was a hell of a statement given the discourse about Chris Paul's injury during last year's match. Adding to that point, a story had dropped alleging that Paul kicked Steph Curry off the court the night before the game when he'd booked a shoot-around from 7 to 8 p.m. In a show of gamesmanship, CP popped up at this exact time, denying to even give Steph the courtesy of sticking to the other half of the court. To be fair, as shown in the first half, maybe the mind games almost worked. Steph also just didn't even need a reason in the first place to do this to the Rockets, so it was a huge gamble that did not pay off. 2021 was the second year of the factory reset that had been bestowed upon the Bay Area given the injuries and their fall from grace. This very likely unleashed the most unforgiving version of Steph we've ever seen, and he made sure to share that with the red team per usual. Around a month after putting up nearly 40 points on them with minimal effort, he challenged himself to put up 30 points and 5 assists in 3 quarters, very likely as punishment for bringing out those blue jerseys. On to 2022. How about the only walk-off buzzer beater of his career coming against none other than the Houston Rockets of all teams? Everybody he's dominated, all the clutch shots he's hit, and the only actual gamer he's ever put in came on the heels of what was a relatively average night for him. Still, as stated earlier, no matter what's going on at any given point in time, he is going to have smoke for that organization. Unfortunately for H-Town, that wasn't even the littest he got on them in January of 2022. Close to 4 weeks later, right as the calendar was about to turn, he'd take a trip to their turf to not just end them in the clutch, but make it a part of a 40-point masterclass that involved 7 3-pointers, with around half of the points being saved for the 4th quarter. You're probably not even asking why this happened. It's a conceivable Steph event, correct? Yes, but also, he only had 16 points midway through the 3rd before Kevin Porter Jr. decided he'd stare him down for an extended period of time. I will say at this point, Kobe Bryant did once warn us about the killer inside Curry, stating that he might be quiet and calm, maybe not even look intimidating, but to make no mistake, he is cut from that cloth. Anyways, yeah, KPJ triggered a quick time event of step backs, sidesteps, relocations, finishes at the rim, essentially practice mode in the middle of a live game. Trash talking the greatest shooter of all time is one thing, doing it while sporting a Rockets jersey is just a whole nother decision. He should have asked Chris Paul, want some more for the 2022 calendar year? How about in November when he capped off a 33-point, 15-assist effort with an egregious rainbow 3-pointer from the hash after being hounded by Eric Gordon? It also led to his infamous night-night celebration. Of particular note is, EG was the last remaining piece of the old Rockets build who'd been getting torched for all those years. You just can't write it any better sometimes. In March of the same season, he paid them a visit dishing out the usual shenanigans. 30 points, 5 assists, and 5 threes, including the one he put through at the beginning of the 4th to break open what had otherwise been a tight game. Good night. That brings us to present day, where the most recent spanking had me rushing to get this video out before Houston comes up on the schedule again and he does some more vile shit to them. This performance in particular was the inspo behind this vid. As we were watching the game together on playback, towards the end when it was still close, I told the chat I felt like I'd seen this movie before. As you now see, it was because I had. Over and over and over again. Curry wasn't having a great night, but the game was close, it was the fourth quarter, and he was in Houston, specifically in the vicinity of Dillon Brooks. That's all the ingredients for God Mode to activate. Chef proceeded to cook the very same recipe he's used for nearly a decade now, devastating the perimeter defense and making a mockery of whoever was chasing him off ball. The shots were so ridiculous, in fact, they even invoked a reaction out of him, after everything he's done in his career, specifically to this team. Just to drive the point home, he'd only scored 24 in this one on what was once again a very average night before he took off. However, just like he's proven so many times before, no matter what's going on with him, the Warriors, the NBA, he's always got one ready to go in the chamber, specifically for the Rockets.